Hello and welcome to the Coder Kids podcast. This podcast, we talk about our business, we talk about coding for kids, we talk about gaming for kids. And today we're going to be talking about some of the benefits that we feel like kids get from an educational approach by taking a class with Coder Kids. And so just kind of breaking that down a little bit. My name is Jeff Ward, and I'm the owner of Coder Kids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
I should say I'm the founder of Coder Kids.
founder.
And that makes more sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I like founded it in the beginning.
that's right.
It'll help people understand a little more where I'm coming from. Because
Yeah,
James is doing all the work right now, so
I'm working,
we should
working,
acknowledge
working.
that.
Well, I appreciate it. Yep. So I'm James Thornock. The online operations manager. That's my current title, and because all of our classes are currently online, we hope to
That's
be
right.
back. We hope
It
to be
wasn't.
back. What's that?
It wasn't always that way.
No, yeah, we hope to be back in person. I'm shooting for the spring, but it's really hard to tell at this point what the future holds. But we'll do whatever's available to us.
We're making it through. Well, so I think a couple things. I mean, I think that it's interesting that we're on our third podcast now, and we keep calling it a podcast, but we haven't actually posted it on a podcasting platform.
Right, it's just a
So
conversation. It's an interview. Yeah,
it's a YouTube. I mean, what do you call this? If it's a
it's a
is it a
YouTube
video cast?
exclusive. Yeah, it's just
It's a
interview.
YouTube exclusive.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a YouTube
that's right.
exclusive.
We did
Jeff
a
and James
content deal.
talking.
We did a content deal with YouTube, but they just don't know about it yet. So
Yeah, exactly.
I look
So we
forward to
didn't
that
want to
future non-negotiated contract.
spoil. We didn't want to spoil our podcast by giving it to Spotify or someone like that. We just had to keep it exclusive to YouTube.
Yeah,
But it's actually just laziness of not posting it on the other platforms yet. But
it's gonna
other
happen.
interesting news is that I think we're going to try to shoot for a little shorter today.
Yep.
Our last two podcasts have been about an hour. So if that was too long for you, then maybe this is a little more bite size.
But 30 minutes is still longer than my average workout, so it just depends on where you're at with your workout routine, whether you're listening, where you're working out, running, doing the laundry,
That's true.
whatever.
But if you are listening to this, then you should say, I'm going to go until they're done talking.
That's
And
right.
then
You don't know.
and then
There's a
we'll
little
see.
bit of mystery.
And we'll
It's
see.
exciting.
Um James, what is going on with you in real IRL in the real life?
IRL. Well, I just attended the Fortnite Diplo concert, so yeah, I love
Oh,
Fortnite. It is a bunch of fun. We just wrapped up our YouTube class, our first YouTube camp, which was pretty exciting. Some kids were incredibly creative, whether it was stick figure animations or all sorts of things, filming things around the house, learning how to edit, learning how to shoot, learning about lighting and thirds, and it was really interesting to try something new, and I think it turned out well. So
yeah, I think
uh,
it's interesting because we've always done coding and gaming, but this is I guess we've done a few other little random camps, but this is kind of our first foray into YouTube, and that's also because we have an instructor who is like super into film and YouTube and stuff, and so it kind of seemed like a natural fit. And so I'm glad to hear it went well.
yeah, yeah, creativity was required, but we figured it out. Anyway, that's still work. My personal life, what's going on there, you know, my boy's growing up. We're gonna bless him this Sunday, so that's exciting. Um, that's something that normally happens in a church, but you can't do it in a church these days. So, um, we're doing it in the home, so that'll be neat.
Cool, that'll be fun.
So, yeah, that's how they officially get their names. They're just blank slates up to that point, right? So that's something that's exciting. And then I've just been trying to mow my lawn in between torrential downpours, and grill a lot of meat on the grill. That's basically my life. Eat, take care of my little boy, and make sure that Coder Kids is all good to go. That's my
Cool.
life. Oh, and we did watch a comedy live stream, so Laura and I try to have a date night once in a while, and so we watched a comedy show via live stream. So paying an Instagrammer to listen to their jokes has a very interesting 2020. You know, it's a strange place to be in, but we're here.
All right, well, I guess I'll go ahead and dive in with
Yeah.
a personal update of my own.
Sorry, I was
if you
looking at
would
you.
like,
You're supposed to know I'm looking at you, and that's the cue.
you could say,
I could
"Hey,
say,
Jeff."
hey, that's your turn.
Yeah,
It's the other
good.
bald guy
Yeah,
needs to give the
um,
update.
yeah. Well, I guess the only thing going on here is, well, lots going on, but I'm working in the garden. So actually, I don't know if I've told you this, James. We in our new house we have a large garden with a lot of like grapevines.
No, you did
Actually,
not.
like lots of grapes. Yeah,
Really?
I have a lot of grapes.
Like Concord
And so,
or what kind?
well, I don't. That's a good question. I mean, there's
Or are
just
they like
green
violet?
grapes.
They're green. Okay, they're not Concord then.
Green. Yeah, I do like the purple kind. But yeah, these are green, and they're doing okay. You know, they're doing okay. But I've been watching some YouTube videos and stuff about like how to prune grape plants, and it's a lot of work. So I've been pruning them back, cutting out a lot of the old stuff, or a lot of the new growth is what you're really supposed to cut back. So I've been cutting back a lot of the new growth, a lot of the dead branches and things. So I've been spending some time in the garden. Also, another update is that we are almost 100% on our home theater project.
Oh
So
yeah.
we this house that we moved into has a 4K projector. It's actually up here on the ceiling.
Okay. Yeah.
Please don't rob me or burglarize me. But yeah, this new house had a 4K projector when we moved in. Actually negotiated into the house, and so
Nice.
now it's like, well, I got to get the receiver, got to get the speakers, got to get a subwoofer. But it's coming together right now. I'm actually waiting on some speaker cords. So
Okay. Speaker
anyway,
wire. Yep.
that's the big. Yeah, I mean that's technical, so I think it fits in with this podcast really well.
Well, if you do have a receiver recommendation, mine's like 25 years old or something. Picked it up at a pawn shop. So
I am going to recommend it, but only via affiliate link in
see,
the
you get a cut.
description below. Isn't that what? Isn't
That's
that
what
what
we.
everyone does?
That's what you gotta do. You
But
gotta
this
help a brother
this is a
out with the
Yamaha.
affiliate.
It's a
Okay.
Yamaha
Yeah.
RXV 385 or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's good, but it's an affordable one. But it does the trick, you know, so far.
It's the best,
All right, well,
musical instrument motorcycle brand that I know of. So it's, it's good.
let's dive in. We got James's full life update.
Yep.
You got a little glimpse into Jeff's life.
That's right. Grapes and music.
So it's grapes
in theater.
Theater, yeah. I really want to try to watch more movies. I don't know if that's like a dumb goal, but I would
want
like
to be more American. I want to sit on my couch. I strive one day.
Just watch more shows.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so diving into the topic today, educational benefits of a Coder Kids class. I will say, like, I guess it's gonna, the topic sounds a little self-serving. Is that
well, I mean, honestly,
we should just say like a coding class.
In defense, yeah, I mean, in defense of, parents listening to this, I mean, I think if you listen to the end of the podcast, you're going to hear a lot of useful things that you might, otherwise not know about the camp that you'd like to really know, because we're kind of going to do a deep dive, a little bit. I mean, not the deepest dive, into what your kids are actually talking about when they come home from a Coder Kids class that week, right? You'll start to be able to recognize some of these terms. It's going to help you. It's going to help you know what to even like ask your kids when they come home, and kind of participate more in that experience.
I also think that this list that we've come up with, I think is mostly focused around like coding.
For sure.
Right. So we offer a lot of like other kinds of tech camps and classes. We are offering a lot in the gaming arena these days, and also just other creative and tech things. I would say that we're trying to not venture outside of the tech realm in our classes.
Yeah,
Is
for the
that
most part.
fair to say? For the most part.
I mean, 95% true. Yes.
Well, what is a non-tech class that we're
Well,
offering?
I mean, drawing is, it's done with pencils and pen and, you know.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
true,
other
but I
than
guess
that's why I said
yeah,
95. I mean,
yeah.
it's mostly accurate.
Well, and also like
Stuff on a
if you are
computer.
in Scratch, yeah, I mean you can definitely translate your art skills to drawing with technology. But anyway,
Yeah, that's true. We're never going to venture into karate or taekwondo
right.
or yoga. We're just not going to do
Not
that. There are
I
other
mean
people
chess, it seems
much more
like
highly
yeah, it
qualified.
seems like chess is not a topic that we should, even though it's
It's adjacent
similar.
mentally in
Yeah.
some ways. But
All right, well, let's dive in. So James kind of did the grunt work of making this list. So I'm sure it took you about 5 seconds though, because we're talking about this stuff all the time.
every day.
Um, so let's
Yeah.
kind of dive in and talk about. We're talking specifically about the educational benefits of taking a Coder Kids class that is on the topic of coding.
Right.
Go ahead, James. What's your first one here?
Yeah, so first thing that I like to talk about is, they it's really just how students or how your children look at problems and how they solve problems in their life. So some parents ask me, they have this question. They say, James, you know, what if my kid never goes into coding? And I say, no problem. That's fine. That's great. Because, I didn't until recently, and I'm really passionate about it now. But one of the things that coding has changed for me is how I look at the world, how I look at business, how I look at purchases for my home. It's just so much more logical. I look at coding encourages you looking at all of the individual parts of a problem, because if you have incorrect data for one of those parts, for instance, how strong, I'll just use a personal example, like how strong I need a weed eater to be. Um, I thought it didn't need to be as strong as like a gas powered one. I happen to be a little bit wrong, so I'm suffering now, right? Because that one
Wait, so
variable
let's
was wrong.
just let's just go off on this tangent for a second.
Okay,
Are you
I thought you were gonna
saying
rein
that
me back in. Thought you were gonna rein me back in
are
for the.
you yeah, are you a battery guy or a gas guy? I mean, did you buy a trimmer and it wasn't powerful enough? Or
Yeah, it's a
electric or what
battery.
do you
Yeah. It's like a Black and Decker weed whacker with a battery. It's like a 2 amp battery.
Okay,
It's
so
it's
you don't
doing
feel
the
like it's
job
powerful
kind
enough?
of. Yeah, it's nice because I don't have to suck in toxic exhaust, but it is,
No,
unfortunately,
I wanna
I'm pro
stay off
battery,
your
but
your tangent a little bit. Yeah, I mean batteries are, you know, good for the world, I guess, maybe. Um, but I think that it's an approach to the world that you can take when you're kind of learning to code. And I hate to call out like old people, but a lot of times like old people don't want to take like an analytical approach to solving problems. Um, and I think a lot of younger people do like to take that analytical approach in solving problems. And like, I- we say just Google it, right? But for me,
hmm
it's like that is how a lot of computer programmers actually do their jobs. Is they just Google it. Um, and so if you are the kind of person that like doesn't like to solve problems or doesn't like to think through things in an analytical way, then you might not be someone who really enjoys coding very much.
but it's
Um,
hard to know until
but
you try it. I mean, that's the.
yeah, and also like James was saying, like it teaches your kids a skill, like think through problems and analyze problems, um, even though it might prove difficult at first.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'll add as a quick disclaimer. Like, every single one of our classes or camps are going to be frustrating at some point. They are like you're going to deal with multiple. I think I'm going to call them hurdles because there's a way around or above, or think of it like an obstacle course. sometimes there's more than one correct answer, and some of these students absolutely blow my mind with how they figure it out, and I'm really impressed. And whenever that happens, I call up the parent right away and I say, your kid's genius. They figured this out in a way that I didn't even think to teach. I knew about 3 ways to solve that problem, but they come up with a fourth, and I love that. And so experiencing that frustration is part of it, but then they get used to that, and then they crave being able to solve those problems. So I think we can kind of move on from problem solving, but that's going to be great professionally. It's going to be great with them interacting with other people. It's going to be great with them working on teams, whether in school or at any level in school or in the workplace or just like in life. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Um,
get missionary zeal a little bit about some of these things. So
coding. Yeah. Let's dive into another topic here, and it might be kind of along the same lines, but I think one thing that I really like about coding classes from an educational perspective is that we introduce a difficult topic, but it's kind of a safer space for kids to be able to figure out these things than maybe a traditional classroom setting or traditional like school setting.
100%.
In school, you're constantly getting exposed to new topics that you have never figured out before, but you're on a timeline with your teacher, and it's like in this one day. I mean, I as former teachers, I think we know, we're gonna do the like the teacher is going to teach for a little bit, and then we're going to do some kind of like practice together, and then we're going to send you off for independent practice, and by the end of the day we kind of expect you to master it.
Test on Friday.
Great thing just on Friday, and then unit tests and 6-week tests and whatnot. The great thing about Coder Kids, apart from the fact that we don't have tests really, um, we're going to keep giving these difficult topics, but it's not really like something where they need to feel pressure, where they need to feel like, if I don't figure this out in time, I'm going to fail a test on Friday. It's just something that they are doing for their own personal improvement, for their own personal knowledge. We've taught a lot of kids who get to Friday and they are still kind of struggling, but hopefully they have at least moved forward. I would say every kid moves forward a little bit in their understanding of these difficult topics. So that's kind of one thing I really like is no matter how difficult it is, they are moving forward in their ability to understand it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if on the other side of the equation, you have a student who's super like, man, I've got this, I know all this stuff, I've learned all this, then, that might be a time for private tutoring when we can go one on one with the student and say, hey, we can tutor you up through the college level. Let's go. What
Yeah,
direction do you
for
want to
sure.
go? Do you want to start it in Python? Do you want to work on a little bit of JavaScript? Do you want to try a little bit of each of the languages? And, let's really ramp up your knowledge if you really want to get academically serious about this. Again, though, there's not like a test. There's not like this point at which you can fail. It's just a series of doing the work, encountering problems, which inevitably happen, figuring out the ways to get past those and get through those. And so you gain those skills. Those skills then you can take to other languages, and then you can do even more. And it's a huge head start if you want to take computer science in college. But even if you don't, you could totally, go into, the medical field or any other field and still use those skills. And if you combine coding with other professions, that can be, potentially pretty lucrative as well. So, there's sky's the limit with the actual educational potential if you have the patience to be able to encounter problems and then to overcome those. But back to the coding skills.
But yeah, I was just gonna add on and say whether you're ahead or behind, I think to kind of put a closure on this topic, ahead or behind, I think I like the fact that there is plenty of time and plenty of there's no pressure to have to figure things out. So no pressure could mean maybe a more advanced student is going to soar through and create some really awesome stuff that's super advanced. And no pressure also means that our kids who are a little bit slower to figure this kind of stuff out, they're going to have still a positive experience and still be able to make some progress. So
And
yeah, let's jump into the next. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I will say just one more thing. And that is that even though I'm making it like this big scary thing, it's really a safe place. Like you can do something wrong, and sometimes these students will get this mortified look on their face, like I think I did something wrong, and it's like, okay, that's yeah, I did that too. No big deal.
Right.
They're
And that's the
afraid.
real
They're
world,
afraid that
right?
it's it's this process. We're gonna figure this out. They don't have to worry about being wrong because there's no kind of So it's just a safe place in order to be able to. It's just like a workshop for the brain. I feel like that's I think that's a good analogy. Okay, like you said, Jeff,
Well,
we
let's
should
jump in.
jump into
Yeah. Well, I know you've
sequencing.
got some other points that you want to talk about. So you want to talk
Sure.
about coding skills?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about
I
skills.
still like these other points that we have,
This
but yeah, we can dive in wherever you'd like to dive in. We can talk about it.
Yeah, I want to.
Can talk about the hard skills. Let's go.
Let's talk about hard. So these are the actual coding skills that actually apply to all other languages. Actually, right? I love that word. Sequencing is the first of which, just because sequence comes first, right? So this is just making sure that computer commands are in order. So what coding is writing instructions for computers. So if we make your children repeat that at Coder Kids, that's so that they'll remember it. That's all that coding is writing instructions for computers in whatever language we're using. And those instructions have to be in order, right? So you have to, if you're making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, you got to go to the store first. You got to buy the bread. Then you got to take the bread out of the bag. Gosh, I don't eat bread. I just realized. So I'm like, I don't know how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But then you got to open the jar. Then you can't spread it before you open the jar. So you have to do all these things in order. And often, even I, on my perfect, absolutely perfect Scratch projects, right? A little bit of sarcasm there. Make sequencing errors all the time. And so, especially when things repeat, when certain things keep happening and they need to stop happening, it's just another way to help kids think logically. Any thoughts about that, Jeff?
Yeah. Well, I think it is interesting. We don't focus on this too much, but I recently learned the difference between an algorithm and a program. So an algorithm, you know this?
Ah, lay it on me.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I was just wondering.
I don't know the
Um,
specific like.
yeah,
I know
specific
that
definition.
algorithm
So,
doesn't show up in the movie Tron. That Go ahead.
so yeah, an algorithm is step-by-step instructions that are using like regular expression, regular language. Whereas a program is just an algorithm is written for the computer, for the computer language. So a computer can't understand an algorithm because it's written in natural language, and so a program is just written in syntax. And so when we're talking about sequencing, you can. It's something that we use in everyday life for sure. And I think that one of the great things about Coder Kids in these early grade levels, when we're talking about Scratch Junior and Scratch, is that we're bridging the gap between algorithmic thinking and syntactical thinking. We're trying to say to kids, like, we want you to do what you already know how to do in your brain, which is put things in order. You know how to, brush your teeth, right? So you know how to put things in order, basically. Now we're going to take that same skill that you have, which is putting things in order, and we're going to use it with a computer and with a basic syntax. And then from there, once we've done Scratch, then we can move on to the more complicated programming languages that use a more complicated syntax. Again, I think we've talked about this in the past, but the syntax part, generally speaking, is not the most challenging part for computer programmers. You have to know it, you have to learn it, but usually once you get the hang of it, you can figure it out pretty well. The harder part is actually like the actual thinking and logic behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, you
There you
have
go.
to.
There's a little something for you.
There we go. Awesome. So then we come to conditional logic. So if it's raining in dark and there's torrential downpour and there's water filling the streets, this is bad analogy podcast. We should just rename it.
You keep coming up with the analogies.
I know. It's self-critical, but it's
You don't have to have an analogy for everything. You just talk about it.
I like analogies.
You could
So,
give a computer game example. It might be better than
in Houston, Texas,
real
though.
life.
If the roads fill up with water, you're not driving on that road. It's impossible, right?
All right.
So
Yeah, actions have consequences. Which again, sorry to interrupt you, another natural thing that kids are already aware of. I mean, cause and effect and if then is something that kids grow up with. And we understand naturally just as human beings. So what we're doing is we're giving people we're giving kids the chance to translate that into technology, translate it into like computer programs.
yeah, and in our case, functionally like a lot of games. For instance, if a main character in a video game was to pick up an apple and eat it, what's going to happen to that apple, Jeff?
It disappears, maybe.
Yeah, and then what happens to the character?
It probably is going to gain health.
Bingo. Okay. See, I didn't.
Unless
We
it's a
never.
poison apple.
We never. That's right. That'd be like some Disney plot, but that's. We never scripted that. Like Jeff just knew what happened. That character gained health, and that could be Fortnite. That could be, the Super Nintendo game from decades ago. I mean, so there's a language and a context to these things, but so the conditional logic in at least Scratch is broken down into if then and then if else, and also when the program checks the status of a variable. So that's getting a little bit into the weeds, but the loops just allow students to be able to tell the program to sense different states, essentially. So if two characters are touching, right? So if the main character comes into contact and on the screen actually touches the apple, that's when that health boosting activates. They can make that the trigger, essentially. So there's ways that they can trigger different events in the game. There are ways that let's say it's a game that's based on a timer. You could say, hey, this game needs to start at this second on the timer, and then the game is going to end at this second in the timer, and then however many points you have is that's your score, right? So not only are we teaching them to have the game sense things, but they have to think about what kinds of things should the computer sense. What kinds of things should it pay attention to? And that just requires a lot of forethought and a lot of, quite frankly, that's why our curriculums come into play, our curricula come into play, is because a lot of times it's hard to just imagine everything all at once. When we start to give students a lot of these basic foundational tools, then they're able to plug in their own creativity, their own favorite characters, whether they like Minecraft or Legend of Zelda or Fortnite or any number of different things. They can plug ninjas or Santa Claus or whatever um, in and let their creativity shine once they have those basic building blocks.
All right. Well, I don't want to spend too long on this one topic, so let's. I just want to
Yeah,
briefly
that
kind of
one's done.
cover because we're gonna wrap up here within a few minutes, but um, so so I think to sum it up, um, there's a lot of very functional learning that goes into learning coding. And I think that when you think about logic and you think about the way the world works and you think about problem solving and mathematics, there's a lot that your child can gain and benefit from in taking one of these coding classes. But let's talk for a little bit just about soft skills and how kids can really benefit from soft skills when they are in one of our coding classes. And so, um, you know, I'll just dive in really quick and say, I think especially during this time of coronavirus, I think that it's more important than ever that kids get the chance to like still be with other kids, still be interacting with other kids. Honestly, it's something that even in the spring when kids were at home with their parents all day, like just didn't really get a chance to collaborate and to, you know, I was actually just reading something yesterday that was saying if kids go back to in-person classes, they're going to be multiple feet apart. There's going to be no group work. There's going to be no like touching the same things. There's going to be no interaction, basically.
No
So
high fives.
school
No.
is, yeah, school is not going to be a cool experience for these kids. Not going to be a fun experience for the kids. Um, so one thing that I really love about Coder Kids, and this goes for all the classes that we teach, is I think you have a teacher in a small group of no more than 8 kids, and they are working collaboratively. And there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration, but beyond collaboration, there's also just a lot of opportunities to just develop relationships with other students and and just have a fun interactive time.
Yeah. And maybe we can talk in a future podcast about maybe some more of those skills, but in brief, specifically with our Fortnite and our Minecraft camps where we're specifically working on communication skills, goal setting and leadership. Certain students are actually able to lead their teammates, whether it's into battle or to get a certain resource to construct a Minecraft hut or what have you. They're actually in charge of something, and then they're also on board. They also have to get their classmates on board, and that requires them thinking in ways they haven't thought, maybe in a traditional public school setting where all students are, no, they're not any real student leaders, right? They're just like everyone's a student follower and they have to all do what the teacher says. So it's nice to be able to see the students get a little bit of authority and that put them into a different mental space and then be able to function. I mean, this world needs leaders. We might as well be your kids.
I think it's a good point for especially a parent who has a child who demonstrates qualities of leadership that and just right now is not getting any opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe they typically express themselves um, through sports or through school activities. Um, right now it's a great opportunity. I mean, it always is. I think right now is especially a great opportunity for kids who like technology to be able to get into this environment and develop those soft skills. But I promised a shorter podcast, James, so I think it's probably about that time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's basically it. Lots and lots of good things that can come from being in a Coder Kids camp, whether you really want to get into coding, you do want that academic exposure and that exposure to coding, or you just want your kid to have a little bit better grasp on logic so that they can be able to figure out problems in their life, or just be able to talk to their classmates and have an opportunity to
Yeah.
make friends
Or
and hang out with them later too. I mean, after the Coder Kids camp is done, you are more than welcome, and I'm encouraging you to reach out to other parents and, to make those connections. So,
I thought you were actually going to say that kids can stay in our Discord channel, which is true, right?
yeah, so we have a certain
Like
section
after
of
our
our
class, they can stay in Discord, right?
yeah, they can stay in. You know, that's we
As
do
long as
have
they don't go crazy.
yeah, if they go crazy, we have some bots that will kick you out for bad language or things like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they're
Generally speaking,
welcome
I'm
to
just saying if
stay.
you
Hmm.
have a connection that you really like in a Fortnite class or something, then you could just continue to hang out with that person and chat via Discord and whatnot. So
Absolutely.
it's pretty cool. All right, well,
Well,
let's wrap it up.
I think that's a wrap.
Thanks, James. Thanks everyone for listening. Podcast episode number 3 in the books.
Yep.
Um,
And
and
next week is a mystery. So listen in. It'll be exciting. I don't know what it is.
I think last week was a mystery also. So it's always going to be a mystery at the end. The listener, it's like a cliffhanger.
That's right. Just like
It's
the ones
exciting.
behind me, if you're watching the YouTube version, which is the only version right now.
Thanks everyone. We'll see
All
you.
right. See you later.
Bye.